What is up, everyone? Sean here, and welcome to my first impressions slash thoughts on the beta for Blazblue cross tag battle. And just wanted to just talk about it, sit down, and what I thought about it. So basically, I was able to play it for a pretty good amount of time, for a couple of days at least, and I did play literally just a couple of people. I think I just played two of my friends, and that's pretty much it. I didn't really play anyone else. Like, I didn't play any randoms online or anything like that. So, but I can, tell you just enough about how the game feels and how the netcode and all that stuff feel and perform and all that stuff. So, I guess I can start with the graphics. So far, I actually do like how the game looks, despite the whole like sprite thing going on. And definitely, my impressions from all those videos I made for Blazblue Cross Tag Battle, with all the pricing and whatever the DLC and all that stuff. I remember talking about that a while back. My impressions definitely changed over time. Even before playing it, I thought the game looked fun to play, so really was just convinced enough to even like go through the trouble of pre-ordering and get the beta earlier so that I can at least try it and have a little more time with it. So yeah, so the game actually looks really appealing in that sense. It does take me back to the days of fighting games with sprites, especially with how the game is laid out overall. It seems like it's like a good reminder of Marvel vs. Capcom, the first one, and that definitely had sprites and stuff like that. It was 2v2 and all that fun stuff, and it really definitely reminds me of that a little more. There are some things you will be reminded of from Marvel Infinite, but really otherwise, I would compare this more to like Marvel 1 here, and if you really want a comparison here to make things a little easier to see how or what the game is kind of similar to, in that sense, in Marvel vs. Capcom will be the case. But with that said, though, it is a unique game of its own. It was something I was, willing to get used to, because the overall feel and stuff like that is pretty good. The mobility and the, just moving around in general and just hitting buttons and stuff like that, overall isn't bad. It's just very different. I know from playing Blazblue for a very, very brief time that the game is laid out with A, B, C, and D, and that's how you prefer the buttons, or refer the buttons, excuse me. So A is pretty much like your light. B is pretty much like kind of like a medium slash heavy, and I would consider circle as like your special button in a way. But with that said, I think really what you're really going for is just two attack buttons. I think those A and B are pretty much your main attack buttons, and then circle, or in this case C, is something you would use not as often, or very or just like in a very non-liberal sense. It is your overhead. It's also if you hit like down C or something, or 2C for those who know those annotations. That's pretty much like your sweep and all that stuff. And that was something I had to get used to. And a lot of the things you will see or feel are just going to come from auto combos, pretty much. It runs heavily on auto combos. And for those who are kind of turned off by auto combos, I can kind of understand that. And but even with that, though, there is still some sort of barrier of execution. So even if there are auto combos and you can kind of just generally hit A and B a lot, there's still a level of skill that you need to really refine in order to execute certain combos. And there are still combos out there that are really cool to look at, and they're actually, they take some time to get, to learn and get consistent with. And so it still presents barriers of learning, and I kind of do still like that. And Like I said, overall the overall feel is good. The overall fun is pretty straightforward. You know, there's a lot going on. There's, you know, it is 2v2. Your second character, it has 3 assists essentially, where you can hold the partner button. It's pretty much like your 5th button, and you can hold it in different directions, whether it's up, forward, or down, or I think neutral too as well. You can have different assists, so you essentially have like different assist characters in one. So it kind of does bring back a little bit of Marvel 2, Marvel 1 as well, in some sense, and I think it's pretty cool that way. It does make it a little more unique in that sense when it comes to team-based fighting games. And mind you, though, I did only play Ruby from, well, the show Ruby. I did pick Ruby Rose, and also I've been sticking with Iron Tiger. He was like, you know, that guy that I was like eyeballing the entire time ever since the game first was coming out or first announced, especially with all those Blazblue characters in there. But Iron Tiger definitely, because, you know, he's a grappler. I do have my fun with grapplers or wrestlers and fighting games, and Iron Tiger is no exception. And whenever the game comes out, I would like to go ahead and try out Waldstein, however you pronounce his name, but he does have some grappling moves as well. He is pretty big. He's got those big ass claws, so, you know, I do like the control of space, but at the same time I do like to grapple people, so kind of like polar opposites, if that makes sense. But I think with just these 2 characters I was sticking with, I had a pretty good amount of fun. I was learning definitely what Iron Tiger can do, and it was pretty fun. He does have those magnets, and it's pretty much like what I kind of want for grapplers, which is for somehow people to come to me and I can grab them and do a lot of damage, and it's very satisfying whenever you hit those command grabs and able to land them. And especially when you get them in that magnetism vortex, I guess. It can be a pretty, you know, dangerous guessing game on your opponent. So I will definitely try to learn more Iron Tiger as the game, you know, comes out with an actual training mode, which I would like to address that later on in this video. But I did have fun with Ruby Rose for the time being, or for the time that I had with the beta, and her normal's a little weird in the sense that, like, her jab, I guess you can call, or light attack, is pretty slow on startup, more than I thought, and I had to get used to that. So I had to resort to her B attack, which is like pretty much like her medium, and she, you know, slashes horizontally with her scythe. Seems to be the more effective button overall. But once you kind of get your spacing and stuff like that, get used to the neutral, which is very strange to me. It was very alien to me from this game. So that's something I'm still trying to get used to. And again, hopefully I get more time with it, and get used to the neutral overall. It's just a little different from what I thought it would be. Overall, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just different. I can only say that much. And Ruby's normals are very. It's not what I expected. They're not terrible by any means, for me anyway. It's just something I have to look out for, because, you know, up close hitting the light jab or whatever isn't the brightest of ideas. It's, you know, kind of, you have to just watch your spacing and stuff like that, and you just have to watch your opponent and stuff like that, and that can be really hard, because this game overall, you know, with Blazblue, I don't really play anime fighters all too much. The only other game I've exposed myself to was Guilty Gear at the time, and I didn't really spend too much time with it overall, and that's why I'm a little more on the slower side when it comes to anime fighters, but this is definitely the most accessible anime fighting game to recent date. So if you want to get into a anime fighting game of some kind, and that's kind of and it's like, you know, within the current generation, you want to pick it up on the PS4 or whatever, or PC, or on Steam, definitely this is the one. I think this is definitely, it does have that accessibility, and you can learn some things when it comes to anime fighters, like jump canceling and stuff like that. So and the fact that it doesn't have a traditional dash, rather you have a sprint, and you do have a back dashing, but the mobility isn't traditional, but it's not terribly confusing by any means. It's just keep those in mind, and your forward mobility is just running. So you do have an air dash, you have an air back dash, of course, and you can kind of do that instantly by hitting up, forward, and the two buttons quickly. So not at the same time, but you can kind of like plank it almost, and you can do instant air dashes and stuff like that if you practice them right. So it kind of is sort of reminiscent to the Marvel games or Marvel vs. Capcom games in that sense, especially with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, if you want to talk about the most recent one. But it's a lot more appealing to look at, I would say that much. I do like the look of the stages. I do like the look of the sprites, the character sprites and stuff like that. It definitely shows off that they definitely reworked them for this game, and I do appreciate that, along with the rebalancing and the adjustments they have to do with the gameplay presented in cross tags. So it does, give me the like a completely different impression, and now I've changed it and kind of appreciate it now that they've actually did that. And the fact that they are putting half the DLC or half the character roster behind DLC is it's still a little questionable, but they could have just come in between and just sell it as a $60 game. But for what it is, these sprites are definitely great to look at, in my opinion. Like I said, it does take me back to the days of fighting games with sprites, and that $70 price tag is a little steep, based on first impression, which is why back then I kind of was very skeptical about it, and I was kind of negative on that too. But now that I actually play the game and have it, and I had it on my own big screen and see how it was, I do appreciate it. I do appreciate the fact that they even use sprites in the first place. And again, they reworked them, and they also reworked their gameplay mechanics around the cross tag battle gameplay this time around. So there is work for those things, and I get it's definitely something understandable. But the way they presented this and marketed it was definitely questionable, and they could have done that much better. And unfortunately, that did put a pretty harsh sting on that for a number of people, and people were complaining about that, and now it's kind of just landed this like wrong impression, I guess, for those people, and they don't really want to get the game anymore until it's on sale or something. But I am for getting this game on launch. I'm actually getting myself the digital deluxe edition, which includes the season pass, and I do want to see all the characters make it in there that have been presented so far. I love to take a test run with Kanji. He's another grappler, and he's a character from Persona, so I do appreciate that. And also Yang looks fun. She's like that punch girl or whatever. And Blake does look interesting enough. I would like to check her out as well. And just other characters as well. Hopefully some certain characters from Under Night Birth, whatever, or aka Unil, as many people call it. A certain character, if that certain character makes it in there, I forgot her name, but she had a long katana or the Nodachi, and she pretty much fights like Virgil, like from just from looking at her, and she looks really cool from a design perspective, and I love to see her. I think her name was Yuzuriha or something. I could be wrong, definitely, but it's just hopefully certain characters make it in there, and I love to see them make it into the cross tag battle and try them out at least. So and hopefully we see more even after that big DLC or whatever, that DLC dump. Hopefully they make it a little more accessible in a way in terms of pricing, but it might be the same. I don't know. I could we can only hope for that, but of course I kind of digress, and would like to talk about the actual beta itself. So one of the glaring problems with this beta was the fact that it did not include an actual training mode. So what you have to do is make yourself a pseudo training room with thanks to Yukiko. Yukiko has a self-healing Dragon Punch attack, which basically is I believe A and D. Everyone has a universal rising uppercut kind of move, or DP, as most people like to call him. Everyone has a universal DP, which is air unblockable, so don't jump in recklessly. You have to watch out and just make them whiff that DP and punish them as much as you can. So that's pretty much kind of like sort of like one of the metas for that game. So anyways, so her DP actually heals her all the way if you want, as long as you hold it. So that's what you had to do, is basically do your combo. If you mess up, you hold that X, or you hold the A and D, which you can assign it to a macro. So everyone assign it to X or whatever, and just hold that X down and have her heal herself. And that's kind of why when it comes to the FGC memes, Yukiko is seen kind of like bruised up and beat up or something, just because she was the training dummy for the beta. So that's really unfortunate, but that's how it went. And unfortunately, that was kind of a barrier for me to further try to play it and lab it and stuff like that. So I couldn't bring myself to play it a little further. I was able to play it with my fellow podcasters and stuff like that, including Inuyama and Esfaka. Even with losing, or whether I won or lost, I still have fun trying to understand what the game is all about. But again, it's very alien to me. But learning the things I was able to comprehend was pretty cool, and I do appreciate that. And once the game comes out, I love to try to sit down and take a little more time to actually understand everything else. And especially with the fact that trying to do a super is the same button combination as a grab, which is really weird to me. But I just have to play around with the button configuration, and we'll just have to see how that goes. But it's just for learning that was just so mind-blowing to me, as someone who's always stuck with the tradition of having the two top buttons on my fight stick, and then do the quarter circle motion, and then and there goes a super coming out. But in Blazblue, it's quarter circle and then B and C, which is if you guys play Street Fighter, it would be the V skill button combination, which it's like it's basically medium punch and medium kick buttons. So that's something like that definitely blew my mind. So but yeah, there is a couple of deeper mechanics with the tagging system. There are things like the blue gauges, which represents the gauge where you can use to bring in your partner and yourself at the same time, so you can fight all on the same screen. And that does take 2 bars, and you can also use that to combo break to switch your partner out real quick during a combo, so you can stop it and save your character from dying or whatever, or just kind of just reset the neutral or whatever. And you can also level up your assist combo gauge, and if you manage to activate your resonance in your max level during resonance, which is pretty much kind of like your X factor, you are able to pull off a astral finish, and when that lands, I think it's an instant kill, if that's correct. But it's like a fatality kind of thing. It's pretty much like the ultimate move in that fighting game. So I have yet to pull that off, but I just would like to see that happening sometime in the future for me anyway. But that's how you do your special move, or do that one ultimate move. But otherwise, you have 2 supers that you can do at level 1. And it's pretty cool to look at. It's also just cool to just pull off during combos. So it does have an interesting roster. I'm not too sure how I feel about the character selection screen. It's kind of I understand why they did it, but it's just kind of weird to look at. I don't know. It is practical in some sense, but it's still still would have been good to have it just the traditional character selection screen, where you have all the characters in one screen, and you have some of those gray squares or whatever for the DLC characters or the characters you haven't unlocked, whatever reason. But it works, I guess, and overall, I guess it does have a pretty flashy versus screen and all that stuff. That's something I always look forward to, and it's still appealing enough, a lot more appealing than Marvel Infinite. Sorry to take jabs at that game, but I have my reasons. But anyways, the other important thing was the netcode, at least during the beta anyway. And the netcode, I was able to play with my friend Isfaka, who lives in California. So we had definitely at least a decent connection. But I played with my friend Intergamma, who lives in the East Coast. So that's the real test there, at least for me anyway. And for the most part, it operated pretty well. So the netcode is definitely solid, to say the least. So if you guys worry about that, or at least the netcode is there. That's at least workable, so that you can work with it and stuff like that. Well, of course, I mean, it's not perfect by any means, but it's at least decent, let's just say. So that's something I don't have to worry about too much, but I will expect myself to, and I will prepare myself for those one-bar connections and stuff like that. So we'll have to see how the netcode really handles during the actual game release. So but I did like how the lobby system was, for the most part. It's similar to Dragon Ball Fighters, but there wasn't any spectator mode or anything like that, so that was a little disappointing. So hopefully they work around that and add that in there for the casual lobby. And hopefully, of course, they have an actual private lobby, which they lacked also in the beta, but I'm pretty sure they'll have one for sure. But we'll have to see about that. So if there's anything else I'm missing from my mind, but I think that's pretty much it. I definitely covered the important bits when it comes to the character roster and the actual fighting mechanics and stuff like that. Of course, the online portion of it. It's overall they've done a pretty good job so far, and my impressions definitely changed for the game. Initially I said I wasn't interested, but I actually was now convinced enough after watching enough gameplay for it to go as far as purchasing the digital deluxe version. So You can definitely see some sort of Blazblue Cross Tag Battle footage for this channel, and maybe perhaps myself doing a review about it. Whether I do a full out video review or excuse me, review video, whatever, and or I just do a casual review about it, just sit and talk about it on the mic. But either way, I am definitely interested enough to purchase the game, giving that $70 for the game, and willing to give it a shot. Let's see how long this lasts comparing to Marvel Infinite, because Blazblue features characters that I'm not too familiar with, other than the Persona characters, and some Blazblue characters. But it's even with that, I'm still unfamiliar with the rest of the cast, really. And as to Marvel Infinite, there's characters that I'm familiar with a lot more. So, but unfortunately, it was graphically unappealing or whatever. But as to Blazblue, it's a lot more appealing with the graphics and stuff like that. So let's see how those things help me get motivated to play Blazblue, and let's see how that lasts. So we'll see about how the full product goes. I definitely look forward to it. For the most part, I was pleased with the beta, and it definitely offered enough for me to land a first impression based off of the beta. And I can say that I am well enough sold. So that's pretty much it for me for my first impressions / thoughts on the Blazblue Cross Tag Battle from the beta that happened during this weekend. So thank you guys so much. That's pretty much all I have to say about Blazblue. If you have any comments or anything like that, leave it down below. Love to check them out. And don't forget to hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the video, and also hit the subscribe button and hit all the bells and whistles or whatever to get notified and stuff like that. And you can support me through all the links in the description box below. So again, that's pretty much all I have to say about Blazblue Cross Tag Battle. Looking forward to it in June, which is pretty much a couple of weeks. So until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.